The high heavens are ruled by the Angirus Council, which composes of 5 different archangels. But what about the other angels in the series, such as Inarius, Hadriel, Varathiel, among others that we've encountered in the games, and how do they measure up in power compared to the ruling body of the high heavens? In this video, we're going to discuss the most significant angels in Diablo lore and rank them as to how powerful they truly are. Let's jump right in. Starting off this list with number 14, we will start with the time-lost angels that we encounter in Pandemonium in Diablo 3. Auriel and Haziel. Auriel, along with his forces, are stuck in a status trap, and upon removing this status, he immediately begins attacking our Nephilim, thinking they're a demon, which goes to show that he may have been stuck in time for so long that he never even knew Sanctuary and the Nephilim existed. One thing to note about him is that he has darkened wings, and the reason being is because he's been away from the Crystal Ark for so long that his wings took on a much darker color. Sharing this rank is the other angel we find in Pandemonium, which is Haziel. Haziel was trapped in the realm of the Banished, which is accessed through a portal on the back of the Realm Walkers in Pandemonium. You could compare this very closely to the Realm Walkers we see in the latest Season 6 of Diablo 4. Now, inside this realm, we encounter Haziel, but we notice that he attacks the Nephilim alongside the monsters and demons within that realm, which goes to show that he completely went mad during his isolation. Along with Auriel, his wings are pure black, which goes to show that he also must have been away from the high heavens for a very long time, and we have no idea how long he was trapped in the realm of the Banished. Moving on to number 13, we have 2 angels that we encounter in Skarn's realm of damnation in Diablo Immortal. We find Mephisto in the plains of torment within Skarn's realm. He is attached to a device called a soul siphon, which is extracting his heavenly light to bolster Skarn's demonic army. His warden, none other than the Butcher himself, makes sure to torture him alongside with his soul being siphoned by these devices. Your hero in Diablo Immortal, the Shard Seeker, goes on to free Mephisto and help you establish a foothold in the realm of damnation. Sharing this rank, we have another one of Varathiel's sentinels, and that is Andalon. Andalon was also imprisoned and tortured by Skarn to extract his light, and he was guarded by the demon named Purus the Decimator. Purus gets defeated, and we free Andalon for him to really talk about how much he hates humanity. I have a feeling that if he was in Diablo 3, he would have definitely been among the ranks of malthael's reapers. Next up, at number 12, we have Mephisto and Andalon's boss, Varathiel. Varathiel led a charge of angel sentinels into Skarn's realm of damnation when it first came into existence. See, Skarn's realm was not among one of the realms formed from the collapse of the primeval Tathamet, where all the other burning hells and the lords of hell, both lesser and prime evils, emerged from. So Skarn, who used to serve under Diablo, created his own realm from scratch, proving his ingenuity. Unfortunately for her, when Varathiel and her sentinels charged into the realm of damnation, she was captured and her warden was Skarn's Baron of Pestilence, trapped there for more than a millennia until our hero, the Shard Seeker, freed her from her imprisonment. After this, she established a foothold in hell and proceeds to help open a portal, granting our player character access to finally defeating Skarn. Now, upon Skarn's defeat and the crumbling of the portal, Varathiel jumps into the portal, protects our hero from the now released spirits of Diablo, and unfortunately stays behind while our hero escapes the collapsing portal. She was overwhelmed by Diablo's spirit, and her sword fell into the depths of hell, and she then became imprisoned and tortured by Diablo. Now, sharing this rank is Shadox is the most powerful and boldest of Varathiel's sentinels that charged into the realm of damnation. He was overcome with pride and valor based on his combat prowess, and as such was the first to charge into the realm of damnation and got captured as a result. During his capture, however, along with the torture, Shaddix finally gave in to Skarn and actually allied with him as his corruption grew. The Shard Seeker goes on to battle Shaddix in 2 different phases, making him the one boss in Diablo Immortal with the most health bars out of any other boss in that game, which shows how significantly powerful he is. Now, after the first phase, Shaddix sheds off his demonic corruption, takes on his previous angelic form, but his wings are darkened in color to show his change of allegiance. Unfortunately, upon his defeat, Shaddix does not reform and sinks into the foundation of the realm of damnation, similar to how Inarius melted into the realm of hatred in Diablo 4. Moving on to number 12, we have the first angel which we do not see in the games, and that is Lysander. She is the creator of the relic, the Sightless Eye, and she was one of Inarius' followers to go to Sanctuary upon its creation. During that time, when the first Nephilim were born, she grew to love one of them named Belial. After the Great Purge, Lysander grew fearful and fled back to the high heavens. Before she departed, she left 2 relics on Sanctuary. One is the Sightless Eye, which she granted to her lover, the Nephilim Philios, so that they could continue communicating between the high heavens and Sanctuary. It's almost like Diablo's version of an interplanetary FaceTime call. Lysander, unfortunately, was caught by her fellow angels communicating to Philios and told him not to reach out to her any longer with the Sightless Eye. Another relic that she left is the mythic unique staff that we find in Diablo 4, which is called a Varian. The story of Lysander and Philios was so well regarded that the Ascari, who we better known as the Amazons from Diablo 2, named 2 of their islands in the Scovus Isles where they reside, one carrying the namesake Lysander and the other Philios. And those 2 are now regarded as deities in the Ascari faith. What's significant about this as well is the Sightless Eye was taken by a group of Ascari who took it, left to the Western continent, and created an order to oversee it called the Sisters of the Sightless Eye, which we know today as the Rogue Order. And of course, in Diablo 4, the Sightless Eye emerges to be used by Lorath and our Wanderer to track Lilith's movements. Moving on to number 11, we have the angel Urziel, who is the most loyal lieutenant and servant of Malthael. Upon Malthael's disappearance following the destruction of the World Stone, Urziel constantly begged the Angirus Council for him to leave the high heavens and go look for his missing master. Finally, he was granted approval to do so and took a number of maidens that tended to the pools of wisdom, which was Malthael's realm in heaven, to go search for him. And Tyrael recommended that he try Sanctuary, for Malthael had a fascination with humanity and he decided to go take a look. Unfortunately, Urziel did not find his master in Sanctuary, but what he did see repulsed him. He was shocked by the number of humans he found on Sanctuary, noting that there were far too many for his liking. And he also noted that although they're supposedly half angel, he felt that they leaned towards their evil and demonic side more often than their righteous. He kept seeing them murder, cheat, and steal from one another and just stand there watching their brother starve. Upon at last finding Malthael, he was not surprised whatsoever that Malthael had the same disgust towards humanity and saw them more as a threat to heaven due to the power of their birthright if all were to awaken to it. And specifically, as part of his motive, he said the tragic mistake of Inarius will be gone. That mistake being the creation of Sanctuary, Nephilim, and thus humanity. Now, when Malthael moved to attack Sanctuary, Urziel was given command of the Reaper sources and enhanced with the souls of the fallen, granting him some power of death. He was specifically assigned to lead the charge in Westmarch with with a role specifically tailored to delaying the Nephilim, particularly to keep them from disrupting the soul crucibles, which were killing and collecting souls of humanity. Now, what was interesting enough is that when we do meet Urziel in the Tower of Corellon in Act 5 of Diablo 3, his form changed significantly from the angelic one before he became a Reaper. His form began to take on more of a human form, giving him skin, muscles, and a typical male human physique. Moving on to number 9 of the list, we have another of Malthael's lieutenants, and this is Saraziel, who is the leader and the last of the Death Maidens that we encounter in Diablo 3. The Death Maidens were servants of Malthael's pools of wisdom who followed Urziel in his quest to find their master, Malthael. Malthael then created the Reapers, enhancing his follower angels with the power of the souls he collected. And he gave the most important charge to Saraziel to be his right hand and give her the title of Malthael's guardian. He appointed her to protect the Pandemonium Fortress, and specifically the soul construct there, where all the souls that Malthael was collecting were siphoned into. Now, a reminder, the Pandemonium Fortress was the source of contention during the eternal conflict, with the heavens and hell's entire point of waging war was to retake this fortress and control the world stone that was held within. So for Saraziel to be granted this position goes to show how powerful and important she truly is. Moving on to number 8, we have the angel Izual before his corruption. Izual was a powerful lieutenant and commander that served under the archangel Tyrael. He was well regarded for his battle prowess during the eternal conflict, and specifically during a battle where the prime evils almost breached the diamond gates of the high heavens. Using his blade Azarath, which has been seen in most of the Diablo games, he brought wrath down onto the demons and his enemies. Unfortunately, after he heard that in Belial's realm of destruction that a weapon mirroring his own was being created, he recklessly chose to go down and attack the Hellforge to keep this weapon from being constructed, and ultimately was overwhelmed and captured by Mephisto's forces. At this point, we know the story. He got tortured. A spirit from Hell's abyss came up and inhabited his body, giving him the demonic form that he has today, and all the information that the high heavens knew about the soul stones and how the high heavens themselves worked was all knowledge granted to the burning hells. Next, moving on to number 7, we have the first of the archangels, and that is Auriel, the aspect of hope. The first of the 5 of the Angirus Council, she, along with her 4 brothers, are the ruling body of the high heavens. Specifically, Auriel, being the aspect of hope, encourages and motivates all of the angels within the high heavens. And it is known that when she is seen in battle against the burning hells, she inspires hope in the angelic host. Now, although she's able to use her threads to burn and vanquish enemies, Auriel takes on more of almost a supporting role when it comes to her combat prowess, using her threads to heal and encourage her allies as opposed to directly combating the lords of hell. Moving on to number 6, we have 2 archangels that may or may not exist in today's lore, and that is the archangel Hadriel, who allied with Tyrael to help out our heroes in Diablo 2 by guiding them to the Chaos Sanctuary in the burning hells to help stop Diablo. We haven't heard much of him since, and Deckard Cain himself refers to Hadriel as an archangel, which are the most pure and the most valorant of the angels. Now, alongside Hadriel, we have another angel that takes up the spot of number 6, and that is Yarius. Now, Yarius was only really mentioned in the book The Dark Road, and it is unclear if he's considered canonical. The reason being is in The Dark Road, it states that Yarius brought down the tenets of the Zakharum faith to Acheron, Akarat. However, in the Book of Cain, it's mentioned that Arius didn't really exist, for when Akarat saw the light within humanity, he was more so watching the cracked membrane of Sanctuary that resulted in Odyssean's sacrifice during the Sin War, as opposed to seeing an actual angel. And by the way, Arius means child of light in Akarat's original tongue. And to expand upon the theory that he might not actually exist, Akarat failed to mention whatsoever the existence of such an archangel when we encounter him in the latest expansion, Vessel of Hatred. In fact, he stated it was not his goal whatsoever to have a faith created following him. So the idea that tenets of a faith were brought down to Akarat potentially means that Arius never really existed and the story of the Dark Road has been retconned. One other piece of evidence that actually points toward Arius potentially existing is in Diablo 3 on the unique shoulders called the Spalders of Zakara. Now this is important to note because the developers stated that canonically, Diablo 3 is the first game to really take the lore of the high heavens quite seriously. And in the description of these spalders, it states were gifted to a crusader found in the Aranok deserts outside of Lukalain. And although there was no way to confirm that it was truly gifted to that crusader from Arius, it is confirmed that these spalders were of a heavenly design. Moving on to number 5 of the most powerful angels is the archangel itherael. Itherael is the aspect of fate, and with his scroll, he's able to predict the fates of all creation with an exception. He's able to predict the fates of the angels and the demons, but upon the creation of Sanctuary, which were considered an outside variable, he cannot see the fate of any of the Nephilim. Now, Itherael is quite the combatant for one primary reason. Due to his capability of prediction, he is able to predict the moves of his foes and teleport directly to them to counter and finish them off with ease. Became quite the formidable fighter in his own right. Now, one thing that does bother me about Itherael though, we know that Inarius stole the World Stone and created Sanctuary, so it is a bit strange that Itherael wasn't able to predict this occurring and notified the high heavens to prevent it from happening. And speaking of the creation of Sanctuary, let's move on to number 4 of the most powerful angels, and that is the archangel and creator of Sanctuary, Inarius. Inarius was a powerful lieutenant that served under Tyrael and was also a high-ranked advisor to the Angirus Council. Got absolutely fed up with the Eternal War, and as such, he gathered like-minded angels, and when he was once imprisoned by Mephisto, he formed quite the bond with Lilith, Mephisto's daughter, who also was fed up with the war and knew many demons who felt the same. We know the story there. Inarius partners with Lilith, steals a World Stone from the Pandemonium Fortress, creates Sanctuary. Then they cohabitate and birth the Nephilim. Now, one thing to note here is that after Lilith kills off most of the angels and demons who were afraid of the Nephilim, wanted to kill them, Inarius, as a safekeeping measure, went to the World Stone and attuned himself to it, making him the strongest being within Sanctuary and lowering the power of the Nephilim as time went on. Now, he was empowered until the effects of the Sin War, where Odyssean managed to retune the World Stone and weaken Inarius as a result, but during this time, Inarius may as well have been the most powerful angel when he was empowered in Sanctuary by the World Stone. It is a shame that we never directly got to confront Inarius in Diablo 4, being one of the most powerful angels in existence, but we do get to see his battle prowess and how intimidating his presence was in the burning hells. Unfortunately for him, during his battle against Lilith, she managed to get into his head and catch him off guard. Moving on to number 3, we have Imperius, the archangel and aspect of valor. Imperius, in his halls of valor, leads the angelic host, which is the army of the high heavens, against the burning hells. Upon Malthael leaving the high heavens after the World Stone was destroyed, Imperius was the one that was left in charge of the Angirus Council, and his peers felt that he became quite the tyrant afterwards, being incredibly stubborn and having zero flexibility in his views. Specifically, the angel he butted heads with most was Tyrael. Now here's fun trivia. Imperius was actually originally set up to be the villain of Reaper of Souls and not malthael, which is why he came off as so antagonistic in the events of Diablo 3, clearly hating the Nephilim, humanity, and frankly, rightfully so, blaming them for the creation and the invasion of Diablo as a primeval against the high heavens. Now, although we weren't able to directly combat Imperius in the games, we do get to see some of his prowess in the Pandemonium Fortress in Act 5. Now, Imperius is known to be the first to always jump into battle when the Hells attacked the Diamond Gates, and it was never before breached until Diablo was empowered by the Primevals. In fact, in an animated short, you could actually see Imperius killing Diablo himself during the Eternal Conflict, so he definitely isn't an angel to be reckoned with. Moving on to number 2 on the most powerful angel list, we have the archangel Tyrael himself, back in his angel form. Now, although Imperius was quite powerful, Tyrael in this cinematic was completely able to kick his ass, showing that even valor has to answer to justice. Tyrael was never one to shy down from directly battling the Primevals wherever they existed, and that included on Sanctuary, as we can see in Diablo 2 and his direct involvement in Diablo 3, where he cast off his own angelic form and immortality to directly be able to help Sanctuary. The last time we did get to see Tyrael was back in Diablo 3, but Blizzard keeps breadcrumbing us notes of his existence in Diablo 4, so maybe eventually we'll be able to find out if he's still alive or at least whatever happened to him. And moving on to number 1 of the most powerful angels in Diablo lore, and that is the archangel Malthael, the aspect of wisdom turned into the aspect of death. Malthael was the first archangel to ever come into existence outside of the Crystal Arch, and before the Worldstone's destruction, Malthael was the leader of the Angirus Council. Being known as quite the introvert, Malthael was always deep in thought, looking into his chalice of wisdom, and when he spoke, all the angels, including his brothers and sisters in the Angirus Council, will immediately pause to listen to his wise words. Now, following the Worldstone's destruction, Malthael became deeply disturbed and left the high heavens to ponder existence, for he wasn't receiving the answers he was looking for through his chalice anymore, particularly when it came to the fate of existence following the Worldstone's destruction. At this point, he observed humanity, decided that they're quite the threat to the high heavens, and leaned more to their demonic origin than their angelic one, and are a threat that needs to be wiped out of existence. He creates the Reapers in Diablo 3 and accomplishes a feat that no primeval was ever able to do in wiping out 90% of all humanity. Now, on top of this, he empowers himself with the souls of the dead and gains the power of death, becoming ethereal in form and unable to be damaged by his brothers, the burning hells, or any creature with a foothold in the physical realm. As such, our Nephilim had to become empowered with the aspect of death within the Pandemonium Fortress to even be able to go toe-to-toe against him. Now, beyond just his angelic power, when we do confront him in Diablo 3, he empowers himself with the 7 souls in the Black Soulstone. So that is the 3 primevals, Diablo, Belial, and Mephisto, and the 4 lesser evils, Azmodan, Belial, Ariel, and Duriel. So imagine this, Diablo, the primeval, merged within the most powerful archangel Malthael, essentially making him the most powerful creature in all of existence aside from the original gods, Tathamet and Anu. Speaking of gods, just an honorable mention to Anu, the Crystal Warrior. Anu is the god that's the equivalent of the primevals, in that he was the combination of all aspects of good before his downfall. When he did die, his eye became the Worldstone and his spine mankind became the Crystal Arch. Now, given that the Crystal Arch exists and is the spine of the dead Anu, and the World Stone was destroyed, which is one of his eyes, it's very unlikely that Anu will make a return in the Diablo games, but it will be curious if there's a way to merge the different aspects of heaven to create an ultimate being similar to the primeval we saw in Diablo 3. If you enjoyed Diablo lore, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for future Diablo lore. Also, I do stream on Twitch, where I specifically cover the Diablo games with a story-based perspective, so feel free to hop on, ask your lore questions, and come hang out. Thank you all for watching.